Welcome back, everybody. I'm Morgan Reynolds. This is Coffee, Cocktails, and Capitalism. I'm so excited for today. I have a delicious Ernest Hemingway approved rum drink in my hand here. If you did watch the beginning part of the video, go back and watch. Today we're sitting down with a very interesting guest. He is a retired-ish entrepreneur. Still dabbles in a lot of interesting things. He's seen, I'm sure, some ups and downs in his career, but also I think a good amount of success. We have some friends in common, and he was very kind to not only come on the podcast, also make me a drink. So he's kind of my new favorite, I think. This is Jon Sailer. Welcome, Jon.
Hey, thanks for having me. You and I have something in common.
What is that?
So my last dog, his name was Captain Morgan.
No.
Yeah, and the great thing is he didn't just have a name. Mm-hmm. He basically was an officer. Ah. Right, so
yes,
Captain Morgan.
Yeah. Of the home.
Yeah, yeah. So I thought that'd be a fun fact to start with.
I appreciate that. I'm glad that your dog and I are kindred.
Well, it's better than my current dog.
What's your current dog's name?
Alice Pooper.
No.
Like Alice Cooper.
Right.
But Alice Pooper.
Of course.
For sure.
What kind of dog?
He's a lab hound mix.
Okay.
And we like to say he has the worst of both.
That poor guy.
No, he's awesome.
There's no dignity.
He's awesome, right? I mean, he's kind of our, ride and die. But, every morning we do the exact same thing. Mm-hmm. And every morning it's like he doesn't trust that we're not going to do the same thing that we did the last 100 days.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So we'll go work out and do our thing. And then, I take him for a walk on the beach. Mm-hmm. And every morning he has to come into the closet and make sure that I'm actually getting ready to take him out for the walk.
Well, of course.
I know, right?
I mean, if you start slacking one day, that can't be on his watch.
No, but it makes me feel bad because I'm like, when have we never done, when have I done something different?
Right. No. Like At some point you broke the trust.
I never broke the trust. He's just, I don't know.
That's cute, though.
He's awesome, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you'll have to bring him sometime. We're a dog-friendly show.
Okay.
But Jon, tell me just a little bit about your life here right now. You are full-time in Vero, part-time. You have a lovely bride who's here with you.
So we're full-time in Vero.
Okay.
We moved up from Delray about 4 years ago.
Okay.
And, Delray was kind of like the Eagles song. What is it? Everything, all the time. Everything all the time. Yeah.
All the time, all the things? I don't know.
And it was just, coming out of COVID, we just built this beautiful house in Delray, near downtown, near the beach, loved it. But just Delray became every night, let's get in the golf cart and let's go to happy hour and let's go eat. So you did that like 7 days, 7 nights a week. It just became old.
Yeah.
And so we kind of were looking for somewhere new to go. And I didn't want to go to the west coast of Florida because I think, a lot of those towns are like 1 foot above sea level. I think a lot of hurricanes will continue to spin up in the Gulf.
They do get hit harder on that side, yeah.
And so the flip side is my wife, who's from Maine, somehow cannot live in a climate, lower than 60 degrees. So, St. Augustine North was kind of out.
Right.
So we just I circled the areas that we'd like to live in and watched all of the realtor listings and ultimately picked Vero.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you've been here 4 years?
About 4 years.
Okay. And you guys still travel quite a bit, though.
Well, listen, we love to travel. I mean, I've traveled all my life for work. And now we travel, like everybody else for pleasure. Our favorite places now are going to Central and South America. Because we did the thing, I used to travel again globally for work and, been to Asia many, many, many times and been to Europe many, many times. And, love going to like Buenos Aires, love going, last summer. Can we still say last summer? Even though it was like 2 weeks ago?
Well, yeah. I think that's okay.
So last summer, we were in Panama a couple weeks and we went to Curacao for a couple weeks and just kind of love the culture of going into Central and South America. Yeah.
Very interesting. Yeah. I've not been down that far, so that's cool.
Well, Panama City is kind of like, a lot of people would go and say it's a lot like Miami. And you go in there and the skyline is unbelievable.
Really?
Yeah. And, you've got a very strong kind of banking industry. Obviously, you've got, every ship in the world goes through the Panama Canal. So it's a very much a first world city, great food, good nightlife scene. And then you leave Panama City and you get to the beaches. And, it's kind of like Costa Rica, a little bit different. But, so you get kind of both that yin yang going to Panama. Yeah.
Yeah. I've been to Costa Rica. That is less large and developed, I would say, right?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
But great for, kind of escaping everything.
Yeah. I had friends and, I've been to Costa Rica, a lot of times. And back in my 20s, which was a long time ago, my buddies and I went down there and we climbed the highest mountain in Central America, which really isn't saying a lot. But, then we got done with that. Then we went to the beach town of Vaco. Mm. And, again, we were like, in our 20s, lower, early 20s, not a lot of money.
Right.
We're staying in the shack on the beach for like $10 a night.
Of course.
Right.
As one does, yes.
We're all sitting there going, well, how much money do you have? We're plotting like how many nights, could we actually just move here?
Put a couple coins together.
And so it's changed from that, but there still really isn't a whole lot of infrastructure.
Right. Right. Yeah. It feels a little bit more like a vacation destination versus someplace that you would live and do business. But I want to get into what made you kind of travel all over the world for work. But on this podcast, we like to start back at the beginning. So going back to your roots. So where were you born and raised? Yeah.
So, my, I guess, origin story, it's not a great story. I came from the broken home. I was the latchkey kid and then I moved around all over. Right. So I lived in Colorado, Nebraska, Texas, 3 places in Washington State, Michigan, Hawaii, and then Michigan again. And, it's when you're a kid, like that's tough, right? Because you're always putting all your energy into making friends and 2 years later, your friends are gone.
Right.
In the sports I played in Texas, I was on swam AAU and I played club soccer. Neither of those things they had when I moved to Washington State. So it was tough. And, but it's interesting, right? Because I think, and I use this analogy a lot, that I have this backpack, right? And so you kind of take these, these times in your life and these learning experiences and you just put them in your backpack.
Yeah.
And so when the things I learned as a kid, I think there's kind of 2 big things. The first thing was, that I couldn't be afraid, right? Because, you always like go into that next classroom, right? And that you don't know someone and your teacher's like, well, welcome the new student, you're like, oh.
Right.
And I went through that a lot, and so as I grew, into my 20s and 30s, I've been around the world and I would go places and I'm never worried. And the second thing is I really didn't have anybody to lean on. And so I always had to believe in myself. And I was kind of a screw up in high school.
How so?
So I went to the Michigan math competition, which is like 1 in 10,000 kids.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like a screw up.
Yeah, but I was barely pulling a C in algebra.
Okay.
Right, so I was the underachiever.
But they took you.
Well, it was a test.
Oh, okay.
Right, and so I was always smart, but I was always I never applied myself. But even then, I knew that I always had that belief in myself, right? And that was that thing that I put in my backpack. Was that self-belief that things will turn out good, that you'll do the right things, that you'll take the right shots, and so when I look back at my childhood, again, it's like it was a tough childhood, but I look back and go, because of that, I am where I am today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I think is a great perspective.
Yeah. Yeah.
Was there kind of a conscious decision to really say, all right, I'm just going to believe in myself, or is that something that just kind of started formulating organically and you named it later?
Yeah, I think you just have to. Again, it's like, it's funny because, you're looking like a Norman Rockwell picture.
Right.
That just was not my life.
The classic, yeah.
Right. And so I had to learn, how to make cocktails at 10 years old.
Oh my gosh.
How to make, food at 10 years old. I had to learn how to do those things. And so it wasn't, something that I thought about then. It's just how I had to live my life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just kind of adapting and surviving. So, all right, what happened at that math competition?
I did reasonably well. I mean, but it was kind of embarrassing.
Yeah.
Right. So, because
another trial you kind of had to be able to just like deal with and.
Yeah.
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 So after high school, what did you do?
So I kind of talked about I lived in like 8 or 9 different places. I went to high school. I went to a state school, Bowling Green State University in Ohio. I was graduating in December. And so I'm interviewing for companies in October, November. And in, October, November in Ohio, it's cold, right? And so I came down here and interviewed with Motorola, which at the time was in Boynton Beach, Florida.
Okay.
And it was the paging headquarters of the world. So I'm aging myself, right? But it was, before
Kids,
everybody
look up what pagers are.
but before people had the brick phones. And, it was one of those things where it was warm here, it was cold there.
Yeah.
And so it was a no-brainer for me to come here. And, I spent 5 years, I was a manufacturing guy. And then ultimately, when I left Motorola, 6 years later, I ran distribution for Motorola paging around the world.
Okay.
And I had...
Hold on just a second. So what was your focus in college? Or what did you major in?
Production management.
Production management.
Yeah.
What made you decide to focus on that? That's kind of very unique.
So I liked making things.
Okay.
The notion of just, starting with raw materials and making something out of it. Right? That's cool, right? And that's even, if I think about even the, bartending and what we just kind of did.
Yeah.
Right? You take a bunch of ingredients and you put them together and hopefully it turns out good.
Right. You made something new.
Yeah. And so it was fun. It was fun. But then, and I ran the distribution systems for several plants around the world. And I was coming back from Ireland. I think I'm like 26, maybe 27. And I was too tired to work and I was too tired to sleep. And so you do this personal inventory, and I actually do it often, even still. I don't know about you, but
kind of taking stock.
Yeah. And
frequently, probably too frequently.
yeah. You have to kind of tone it down a little bit. I think.
Yeah.
But my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, picks me up, and I said, "I'm resigning tomorrow." She's like, "You're resigning tomorrow?" She's like, "What do you mean you're resigning tomorrow? You just got a promotion. You're like 27 and you're running this global thing." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm just not a corporate guy. This is just not what I want to do." So I go into the office the next day and I hand in my resignation letter. And for 3 days, I had everybody from my boss to, the GM of the division saying, "What can we do to keep you? What can we do to keep you?" Right? And I'm like, nothing. And so so this is the next big lesson I learned is the 4th day, they're like, "All right, get out." After like 3 days, once they realize that I'm leaving.
You really meant it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what you realize then is no one is irreplaceable.
That's right.
Are you a Seinfeld fan?
No.
So I'll give you a quick analogy.
I've seen bits and pieces of it.
Yeah. So there's a time when Seinfeld has his own TV show. And it's based on him and all the other characters, George and Elaine and Kramer.
In the show? He has a show?
Yeah, so it's kind of meta before meta was a thing.
Before meta, yes.
Right. And so basically the character who plays Kramer is kind of coaching the character that is playing him. And character's like, "Well, I don't want to do that." And Kramer says, "Well, I'm Kramer." And the character who's playing him says, "No, I'm Kramer." Right. And there was like, so I'm training this guy to take my job. And I'm like, "Well, this is how you should do it." And he goes, "Well, no, it's my job now." And again, this was a great life lesson is everybody can be replaced.
Yeah.
Right. And so I kind of changed my, I kind of had a career change, I guess, at 27. And I went into technology startups and I went into kind of sales, marketing management. So I went to a company called i2 Technologies. And if you Google i2, what you'll see is it's a company that grew from 50 million to over $1 billion in 5 years.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. And it's one of those where...
Those are big numbers.
All of our, my friends that, there's still a big alumni group from i2. And we all
all stay in touch?
Yeah, a lot on LinkedIn.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But everybody kind of laments how they're always looking for the next i2 because it was so special. We thought we were doing something special. The problem is, we were we had an IPO right before the dot-com crash. And so a lot of us, our personal wealth, were kind of wiped out because we left everything and I too. Right. So this was the next big valuable lesson, which is diversify. Right.
Right.
But I mean, it was interesting, because we
Can
all.
I ask about how old you were when that was all happening?
Well, in dog years or people years?
Oh, let's just be. It's okay. We're all old here. It's fine.
In people years, early 30s.
Okay.
Early 30s. Yeah. And so,
So you were having to pivot again kind of at that point.
You know what? It was just another hard lesson to learn. But I loved what I did. Whereas I didn't love working for corporate America, I loved working in startups. And I ended up, after I2, I did a couple more startups and I did a couple turnarounds, and learned things in each of them and met people and did cool things and had trials and tribulations and, all those, and kept putting stuff in my backpack, and then I guess it was 2016, I got a call from a recruiter who was recruiting for a company in Florida, which was interesting to me because while we've always lived in Florida, after I got out of college, I always commuted to my job. So I spent, 30 years on planes. Either I was, running, I was a COO of a company or a CRO, Chief Revenue Officer or Chief Marketing Officer. And so I always had to commute to the company that I was working for.
So most of those startups you were commuting to?
Yep, every one of them.
Wow.
Yeah. Which was tough, right? Because you're married and, you miss things and, you miss birthdays and you miss special occasions and, Super Bowl. I miss Super Bowl like every year.
Oh my gosh. That's the worst.
I know, right? But so I get this call from this recruiter and I think like 2016, I would have to go look back on my resume. But, like there's this IoT company, IoT Internet of Things. Right. So IoT, if you think about it, it's, if you think about your little Apple with those little trackers, that we kind of built those types of things for industrial companies.
Oh, interesting.
And so this company was based out of, Davie, Florida. And so I lived in Delray at the time.
Where's Davie?
Davie's like right north of Miami.
Oh, okay.
So I go and do the interview and I'm talking to these unbelievably smart guys, or a little bit, a little strange, but just intelligent, incredibly bright. And it's kind of like what I found back when I was at i2 Technologies. So
we're getting nostalgia vibes.
Right? And so the recruiter calls me after lunch. She goes, well, it must have went well because they want to hire you. And he goes, so what? She goes, how do you think? How do you feel about it? And I said, they're really strange, but they have something. Yeah. And I don't know what it is yet, right? But they have something. If you think about startups and, you think about new companies, at the end of the day, the only way to be successful, and I'm not going to talk so much retail and, B2C, I'm going to talk more B2B, so business to business. You have to solve an inherent problem.
Yes.
And you have to do it either better, cheaper, or faster than
competition.
Yeah, and things that are out there today. And so I didn't know what these guys had. I knew they had something, right? So I ended up going and, spent, 6 months with these guys. And, the founder came to me and said, so what do you think? I said, here's what I think. I think in 6 months, you're going to be out of business. I think you have lightning in a bottle, but you can't be everything to everybody.
That's correct.
And so my next thing was, you can do everything, there's so many things you can do. There's far fewer things that you should do.
Yes.
Right. So, I think when you're early in the company and you're early in products, you want to go try a lot of things. But then when you start to find something that has value and has, a customer base, you need to start honing on that and being kind of laser focused.
Right. You have to drill down. Yeah.
And so that's what we did. And so I ended up becoming the chief, it's the COO, the chief operations officer. And, for 2 years, we kind of built this cool little company. And then we ended up selling it in 2019. And I'm going back to kind of that large corporate environment. We got acquired by a $15 billion technology company out of Sweden. Right. And so, I ended up with that company.
It's like a Succession story.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. But I ended up with that company for about 4 years. And I, kind of built a global, sales and marketing team for one of the big divisions. And then it was just time for me to go and do something new.
Yeah.
And so I kind of decided that I'd be retired. And as you said, ish.
Retired-ish.
And ish, as I mentioned to you, is the most powerful word in the dictionary because it takes something that's very tangible and specific and makes it less tangible and less specific.
Right.
But it was a great ride and had a lot of fun, and I learned a lot of things, and I kind of built this backpack. Did a little bit of consulting after that, but the consulting that I did and the coaching that I did was maybe a little bit too close to what I was doing when I was working. And I just, I think after 30 years of doing this stuff, I just kind of burned out and said, you know what, I will do something else. I will never go and present to a board again. I will never have to worry about, quarterly revenue. I will never have to kind of worry about those things. And so just kind of having a lot more fun up here. Every morning I'm on the beach walking.
Nice.
With Alice Pooper, with my wife. And, there are days we see dolphin on the beach. Or dolphin right off the beach, I guess.
Yeah.
And, we have this saying that when you see a dolphin, like, your day's going to be great.
Well, of course.
Yeah.
That's so special.
Yeah.
So few people in the world get to enjoy
I know, right?
what we have right in our backyard.
I know, it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And I live in Indian River County.
Right.
Indian River Shores. And there's no one on the beach.
Yeah. It's really quiet.
And it's a dog-friendly beach.
That's excellent.
Yeah.
There should be more of those, I feel.
Yeah.
It's, another thing to work on. But so, I think that it's a little bit glamorized, the lifestyle of kind of running and gunning and jet setting and things like that. And you did it, you put in the hard work. And those of us who have done it know it's not super glamorous a lot of the time. To people who maybe aspire to that type of career, would you say anything to them?
Well, that's an interesting question, right? Because on the one hand, to your point, I've seen things like, I was in Barcelona in 2018, 2019, and I happened to see Messi when he played for Barcelona against this is a famous game that he played against France, where they had lost to France in one of the cups, like 10-0 or 8-0. And they had to beat Paris, they had to beat Paris by like 9 goals.
Oh my God, in the same game?
And they did in that game.
Wow.
And like you see things like that. And I've seen the Masters and, I know the best restaurants in Hong Kong. And so there's a lot of cool to it, right?
Yeah.
But I think you just always have to love it or it's not for you, because the problem is if you're not ready to give 100%, you're doing everybody a disservice, including yourself. Right. And so for me, it was like, I probably would have, truth be told, I probably would have retired a little bit earlier if not for COVID, because with COVID, I had a year that I didn't have to travel.
Oh,
right. Which COVID brought its own set of weird things.
Of course. Yeah.
Right. And again, I just started building this global team and dealing with global clients, and we couldn't go to, couldn't go to the clients. And, so that was weird.
Right. But, after all that in-person work to learn how to kind of do it all remote. Yeah.
I remember I'd had a sales kickoff and actually this was in Barcelona. And I had guys from Asia that couldn't attend. And this was like right before COVID became big. And it's like they have coronavirus. Like coronavirus? What are they drinking too much beer? Like what is coronavirus? And it turned out, again, a month after the sales kickoff, it was kind of the lockdowns. Yeah.
So were you guys able to adapt pretty quickly to kind of working through those restrictions and doing things remote and digitally, or did it really kind of change everything for you guys?
Well, I think like everybody else, right? You had those weird type of hiccups where people are like, hey, is this thing on? Right. Hey, can you hear me? And
Cheryl, you're still on mute.
And people that you're like, are you wearing pants? Right? I think that being said, if you kind of, take the comedy out of it, it still's a relationship business, right? And, I had a boss, so again, another kind of backpack thing, people buy from people they like, right? And so, one of the things that we did really well, and I kind of take a little bit of I'll take some credit for it, is we were out front in having these calls with our clients that weren't selling. It's like, hey, we're not selling, you're not buying, we're just calling to see how you're doing.
Yeah.
right? And this was something I think, a lot of our clients, right, because they're in the same situation, right? They were locked down.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so, incredible loneliness for a lot of people. And like, if you think about some countries like Italy, you couldn't leave your house.
Right.
Right. And so we were kind of among the first out there with our client base that, just called people to see how they were doing.
Mm.
Right. And so I think, the compassion that we always talk about having, we had to show,
Mm-hmm.
and I think, because of that, we built really strong relationships with these customers, that made them, that kind of, transformed them from, customers to family. And I think that was very important.
Mm.
And I think a lot of those relationships and a lot of those memories still hold,
Yeah.
even now.
So would you say that in your experience, a company that kind of has some of those more people-focused values, that they generally do have a leg up on everybody else? Or if it comes down to kind of a good product and the lowest price, does it really matter? That type of stuff is always so interesting to me.
So again, and I'm not talking, B2C, I'm talking kind of B2B.
Mm-hmm.
When you sell, you're selling to two different entities.
Mm-hmm.
One, you're selling to a company that basically has a P&L, that has a capital budget. You're also selling to a person who has
making
feelings.
that decision.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I would be lying if I said that the best product was always the one that won the deal.
Mm.
Because of the relationships, and sometimes those relationships give, a company a leg up on the other one. And so I think you have to have both.
Mm.
I think if you have a poor product, you can't last very long.
Right.
Right. If you have a good product, having those relationships and treating your customers fair and with dignity, all those things, I think gives you a leg up. I think every one of those deals has to be a win-win.
Mm-hmm.
Right. You're not going to go do business that doesn't make sense for you.
Mm-hmm.
The customer isn't always right.
Right.
Right. But having that relationship, I think, goes a long way to making sure, with everything else being equal or close to equal, that you win the business.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Can I ask you your thoughts on Apple and its role in all of our tech lives and its competitors, et cetera?
Well, I'm curious why you picked Apple.
I feel like at least once a day I have the Apple versus Android conversation.
Okay.
And I feel a lot of times when I speak to young people in business, they've read something by Tim Cook and they are espousing his thoughts and views. So as somebody who's kind of, seen a lot and done a lot and working for Motorola, I'm
Sure.
just curious if you have some thoughts.
I mean, to me, I was a huge Apple fan.
Mm-hmm.
I still have a new Apple phone.
Okay.
I think, I think, Tim Cook and Steve Jobs, and I think, there was a vision.
Mm-hmm.
I think that vision, they are now just, they failed with Apple Intelligence.
Mm.
They just are not a player. Siri used to be great. Siri's not so great anymore.
Wasn't it kind of one of the first mass market?
It was.
Yeah.
But you buy and I'm not a Pixel guy, but you buy a Google Pixel and it's integrated with Gemini. And, so I think, like everything else, that kind of first mover, situation that Apple had and that vision that they had, I think they're a parody to everybody else.
Mm.
So I don't think that I don't think about an Apple, Google, discussion anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I think, either you're an Apple guy, which you'll always be an Apple person, or you're a Google person, you'll always be a Google person. I'm still an Apple person, but I don't think that there's as much relevance in that discussion as there was 5 years ago, personally.
Well, what do you think about the AI conversation?
So AI is interesting to me.
Yes.
I wrote a book on AI. As soon
What
as
is
I
the name of the book?
It's called The AI Advantage.
The AI Advantage. Everyone, go look it up.
Go buy it on Amazon.
There you go.
I sold like 500 copies.
Nice.
Which is good, because I don't know 500 people, right? So there were people that bought my book
who
that I
don't
didn't
know you, that were genuinely interested. That's great.
And I got a $4 royalty for every book I sold, right? So
there you go.
So that was good.
Okay.
So this book that I wrote, and I'm actually writing a follow-up, it was about how law firms and other, service industry companies can go use AI to kind of help with their intake, help with their, content marketing, help with their outbound marketing, help with their list management, and kind of went through the process flow. And so what I talked about then, I think is still very relevant. I think the book is, the shelf life of an AI book now is 6 months.
Of course, yeah.
And I actually also do a little bit of angel investing, and I talk to startups, every couple of weeks. And, my first question is, will you get to MVP in 6 months, to MVP, minimal viable product? And if they're not getting to MVP in 6 months, they probably, don't have an ability to go sell their product. Because they're not building an LLM or large language model. They're building an agent or something that uses a large language model to go solve a specific problem. And when I was a startup guy, one of the things I always said, and it holds true now, is there are 20 other companies just like you right now doing the same thing that you're doing, right? So if you think that you're smarter than everybody else, chances are you're not. And chances are there are a bunch of other companies. And if you can't get a product out the door that's AI focused to go solve a niche problem, if you can't get that product out the door in the next 6 months, you might as well go think about doing something else.
Right.
And the funny thing is, though, a lot of the young entrepreneurs, which I love the entrepreneur spirit in young people, but a lot of them are kind of headstrong.
Sure.
Well,
to your point, they have to believe in themselves enough.
But they have to be pragmatic.
Of course. Well, that's what separates, I think, the wheat from the chaff, as they say, right?
Yeah. But who is they? The wheat, like when you say they say, who said separate the wheat from the chaff?
Well, I think originally it was in the Bible.
Okay, there you go. There you go. I thought you were going to tell me it was a farmer. Yes. So,
I think it was a farmer in the Bible, probably.
Yeah. But you know what? I mean, I think, I love the entrepreneurial spirit. And I love what AI has done for a lot of, startups, because you can use AI to go and, write code, and you can go use AI to do a lot of things, and so what you need to be focused on is what makes you different.
Right.
And so your ability to get to market much faster and your ability to get to market much cheaper, it's there. Right. But again, and I do agree, you need to believe in what you do, but you also need to be pragmatic. Right. And, I mean, I have a old computer in my garage. And this old computer is something that I've had for 20 years, and it has a hard drive in it. And on that hard drive is the source code of a company that, back 20 years ago spent $10 million to go and launch a new product, a new software product. And at the time I was asked by a VC, he said, is there anything that you can go do with this code, or anybody you can go sell it to? Because they put $10 million into this company. Right. The company just ran out of runway. And so now the company, this $10 million company, is basically, whatever's left of it is sitting in a hard drive in a long forgotten computer, sitting in my garage gathering dust. Right? Yeah. And there's a lot of those kind of tombstones out there of those companies, which, some of them are great, right? It's, Betamax. Yeah. Right? But a lot of them just, you have to kind of, as much as you need to believe in yourself, you have to be somewhat pragmatic. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and kind of to that point, I think maybe we're shifting to a place in the world where companies are not meant to necessarily stand the test of time. Like, that's not necessarily the goal, is to have a singular company that lasts for 100 years. Yeah. But maybe it's more about what can that company do for the people that then will outlive it, kind of thing.
Wow, that's an interesting thought. You just kind of blew my mind there.
Are you mocking me?
No, I don't disagree with it, but I mean, I think to your point, right? I mean, if you think about the great old companies like the G's of the world, I mean, they stood the test of time. So the question becomes, to your point, like, does NVIDIA, are they around in 100 years? I don't know. So I think there's probably something to what you just said.
Well, and you mentioned earlier, some of those kind of more, original Fortune 500 corporate entities that are bigger than belief nowadays are, probably nobody's coming for them at this point, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I get it.
It's like there are some that are there now, will still be there, but the new ones will probably kind of run their course maybe, and then it's about what the humans take from it to kind of go on to the next thing.
Well, when you think about it, right, it's about the cycles of learning, right? And the cycles of learning, used to be, decades at a time, but then they, shrunk down to years, right? And then they shrunk down to months. And to your point, right, and going back to kind of the AI book I wrote, you read it now, it's 12 months too old, and so the cycles of learning are clearly happening faster. And I do agree with you. I think sometime in the next 100 years, maybe there will be the singularity event, so we'll see. I think it's an interesting time, and I think, some of the things, I think to me, like, going back to your AI question, like, I think there's like industries like healthcare, like if you're a researcher, this maybe just, cut the time to go find a cure for cancer or a cure for dementia, because you're able to go do more correlation analysis, because you're able to look, kind of broader and deeper at, all the other case studies. So I think that there's some exciting things, but I do grudgingly agree with you, that I think the shelf life of a lot of companies is going to be shorter.
And that's not to say that those ideas won't live on, or the concepts that people built in those companies then become stepping stones for the next thing and the next thing. But to your point, I think it's like the cycles are so much quicker now.
I just hope that the garage pizza lasts.
The garage pizza?
Yeah.
Which one is that?
The garage pizza?
What are you talking about?
The garage pizza. I'll keep saying the garage pizza.
Okay. I'll just keep being like, what is happening?
It's the pizza place right off the Miracle Mile.
Garage pizza?
It's the best pizza in Vero. Yeah, it's right by Michael's 7th Avenue.
I have not been there.
It's the best pizza. So I hope it'll last.
Okay.
At least a couple more years.
All right. So I'm going to have to go try that because I'm always looking for a good pizza.
Yeah.
I actually like Nino's Cafe.
I love Nino's.
Here. Do you? Okay.
I love Nino's.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but like when we go to Nino's, so we always get the Joey.
What's on that one?
So the Joey is the pineapple ham bacon pizza.
Oh, nice.
With a carafe of Chianti.
That sounds delicious.
Yeah.
That sounds like a great dinner.
Yeah.
Now I'm really hungry.
You know what? The thing about Nino's, what I love about Nino's, I love the people that work there.
Yeah. So are they getting you on relationship over product?
So there's a kid that works there. His name is Duke. These like him and some of these other kids, it's like they give you faith in the next generation.
In humanity, yes.
Yeah, and it's like, it's not about video games. It's about going out and fishing, and it's about, it's about working and, doing these things. And I love the kids that work there, great family business.
Yeah.
And that's what that is the one thing that I love about Vero is you have the family businesses, that you kind of, get to know them and get to know the people. And yeah.
No, and I think there's something really special about towns that still have that.
Oh, yeah.
Because there's more accountability in a community where everybody kind of knows everybody or everybody's connected to everybody.
I agree.
And then I think everybody does sometimes try a little bit harder, right? Because you know your neighbors and you know the people that are being affected by what you're doing every day. Yeah,
people's story. Yeah.
Yeah, it makes a big difference.
For sure.
Yeah. So speaking of the youth of tomorrow, little segue there. What young professionals in their 20s and 30s, what should they be learning or focused on, in your opinion? Should everybody learn to code AI?
Wow, you're asking me hard questions today.
Also, at some point, I want to ask you about this. Is it agentic, that term that everybody's using now? I'm not using it correctly.
I don't even know.
I'm going to look it up.
Yeah.
Anyways, go ahead. Tell me what the youth should know.
Yeah, listen, I think it's interesting, right? Because when we think generationally, I'm a Gen Xer. And so the generation before me were baby boomers. And you think about baby boomers, right? And we all talk about, they're the ones that said, I walked uphill both ways and, snow blizzard.
Right.
You
They
know,
had
and-
it so hard. We will never understand.
Yep.
Mhm.
And they thought about my generation is listening to music too loud and, the satanic music.
Right. You
'Cause
crazy
you
rock
listen
and
to
rollers.
listen to Kiss and Ozzy
Mhm.
Osbourne.
Mhm.
And I think, every generation, we always kind of are judgmental about the generation that come after us,
Mhm.
right? Because they're not like us,
Right.
right? And when you think about, the Gen Z, listen, I think it would be tough to be Gen Z, right? Because they grew up with social media. They grew up with cyberbullying.
Mhm.
They grew up during the pandemic.
Mhm.
They grew up, with kind of everybody getting a trophy.
Mm.
And what I would tell you that I've seen across generations, and I don't mean to simplify it, but I think in every generation you have superstars and you have people that aren't superstars. And I think, if I think about this generation, I think that they are very, internet savvy.
Mhm.
They're very social media savvy. They're very AI savvy.
Mhm.
And I think, hiring those people, and I think they're also, because they had, they've learned how to use Zoom and they've had to use Zoom, they're more independent.
Yes.
I think they also, though, want to get there faster.
Right.
You know,
Maybe a little bit impatient.
a little bit impatient.
Yeah.
Yeah, they want to be running the company, in 5 days. But I think you have to kind of look past the stereotypes
Mhm.
of that generation,
Mhm.
right? And so for these people, these kids now, right? I don't know that I have any specific guidance other than do what you want to do,
Mhm.
but just be good at it.
Mhm.
Go and apply yourself. If you want to be an AI person, there's 1,000 people who want to be an AI person, so you have to be better than them.
Yeah.
If you want to be an influencer, great, go be an influencer, but you have to be better than everybody else who wants to be an influencer,
Yeah.
right? And so that would be the same advice I think you give to everybody, every generation, which is to go be successful. You have to put in the time, you have to put in the energy, and you have to go and either figure out how to be better than everybody or be
Mhm.
different than everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It kind of boils down to the sweat equity,
Yeah.
right?
I think so.
Yeah. That's great advice.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Kids, listen to Uncle John.
I feel like it's maybe fortune cookie advice.
Well, sometimes cliches are cliches for a reason.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So when you're not working hard, you guys are able to.
Which is most of the time.
Most of the time, because you're retired-ish.
Ish.
Do you have any interesting trips planned coming up that you're excited about, or concerts you're going to? You guys are huge music fans.
Yeah, you know what? I think we still are very much, hey, let's go do something next week. Right? So,
Mhm.
we typically don't make long-term plans, but we have the freedom to get up and go. Our only problem is Alice Pooper and finding our dog sitter and making sure the dog sitter is available. But, we're still very much, we live in the today.
Mm-hmm.
We try to kind of, enjoy what's happening around us today. We always try to look to see what the next month looks like. And if we want to go to Italy, we'll go to Italy. If we want to go to South America, we'll go to South America. If we want to go to the Garage Pizza, we'll go to the Garage Pizza.
I'm going to have to try the Garage Pizza.
It's unbelievable.
What do I order when I go there? What's your fave?
So every time I go there, we order the same pizza, and I don't know what it's called. And every time that we order it and I eat it, I'm like, well, this is the best one that I've had yet. and we know that the people there, and they're like, that's what you said last time. Right? But it's wood fired. It's a little bit different. It's not kind of a Nino's.
Mm-hmm.
What Nino's has for it is it's got that local charm.
Yep.
Great food. You get a pepperoni
fresh
pizza.
Ingredients,
Yeah.
I think. Yeah, it tastes fresh.
What the Garage Pizza has is it's a little bit different, and it's kind of one of those, there's very few restaurants in Vero that are different.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of those restaurants that's just a little bit different.
Just a little bit different.
Yeah.
Go check it out.
Yeah.
All right. John, I think we should do this again sometime.
Let's do it.
All right.
Let's go make another cocktail.
Let's make another cocktail. This one was delicious. Thank you so much for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Everybody, go read John's book about AI and the AI advantage, and then keep a lookout for book number 2. And go like, follow, share, subscribe, do all the things, and we'll see you next time. Cheers.
See you later.